The scent of my mother's roast chicken usually meant comfort. It was the smell of scraped knees being bandaged, of celebratory dinners after good report cards, of a home that was, for the first 18 years of my life, a sanctuary. But tonight, it smelled like a trap. Liam squeezed my hand under the antique oak table, his thumb tracing reassuring circles on my skin. He was my future, the man I was going to marry in 3 short months. His presence was a solid, grounding force against the tide of anxiety rising in my chest. We were here for the big wedding talk with my parents. I'd expected questions about the catering, the floral arrangements, maybe a gentle nudge about grandchildren. I was a fool. "Clara, darling," my mother began, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. Her smile was a little too bright, a little too practiced. "Your father and I have been talking about the guest list." I nodded, taking a sip of water. "Is Aunt Carol asking for a +1 again?" "Because her new boyfriend sells crypto and I swear I can't listen to another lecture on blockchain." My father chuckled, but it was a hollow sound. "No, not Carol. It's about Isabel." The name hung in the air, a foul pollutant. Isabel. Izzy. My sister. The ghost that haunted every happy memory I tried to build. My throat tightened, and the roast chicken in my stomach turned to lead. "What about her?" I asked, my voice dangerously level. "Well, she's your sister," my mother said, her tone dripping with forced cheerfulness. "We think it's time, well, we think she should be at the wedding." The room went silent. The only sound was the frantic, panic thumping of my own heart. Liam's hand tightened on mine, a silent signal of support. 5 years. It had been 5 years since my life imploded. I was 20, deeply in love with Mark, my high school sweetheart. We were planning a future, talking about apartments, dreaming the naive dreams of young love. Izzy was my best friend, my other half. We were inseparable. Or so I thought. The memory, sharp and brutal as broken glass, cut through the haze of time. I had come home early from my university library, planning to surprise Mark at our shared apartment. I had a pizza in one hand and a stupid grin on my face. I remember the silence of the apartment feeling strange. No TV, no music. Then I heard it, a soft giggle from the bedroom. It was a giggle I knew as well as my own. I pushed the bedroom door open. And there they were. My sister and my boyfriend, tangled in the sheets of the bed we shared. The sight didn't register at first. My brain simply couldn't process the profound betrayal. Izzy's eyes, wide with shock, met mine. Mark just buried his face in a pillow, the ultimate act of cowardice. I don't remember dropping the pizza. I don't remember screaming. But I must have, because the next thing I knew, I was on the floor in the hallway, my lungs burning, the world a dizzying, nauseating blur. That day didn't just end my relationship. It ended my family. It ended the person I was. The trust one had in the world, the belief in unconditional love, it all died on that cheap linoleum floor. Izzy's apology was a pathetic, tear-soaked whisper of "I don't know why I did it." Mark never spoke to me again. My parents' reaction was the second, deeper betrayal. "She made a mistake, Clara," my mother had said. "She's your sister. You have to find a way to forgive her." They wanted to sweep it under the rug, to pretend the gaping wound in our family wasn't festering. I couldn't. I moved out, got a new apartment, cut off all contact with Izzy, and kept my parents at an arm's length. It was a lonely, agonizing process of rebuilding. Then, 2 years ago, I met Liam. He was kind and steady, and he saw me for who I was, not for the broken pieces of my past. He helped me heal. He was my new beginning. And now, my parents wanted to drag the architect of my destruction to the celebration of my new life. "No," I said, the word a stone in the quiet dining room. "Clara, don't be like this," my father sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's been 5 years. People make mistakes. She's miserable without you in her life." "Good," I snapped, pulling my hand from Liam's to grip the edge of the table. "She deserves to be miserable." Her mistake wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices. The choice to lie, to sneak around, to sleep with my boyfriend in my bed. That is not a simple mistake. She's family, my mother insisted, her voice rising. And family belongs together at a wedding. It would be an embarrassment to have her excluded. What would people say? I stared at her, dumbfounded. You're worried about what people will say. You're not worried about the fact that you're asking me to stand up and say my vows, to celebrate love and commitment, with the one person who taught me that those things were lies? Liam finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. With all due respect, this is our wedding. And it's Clara's decision. We need to respect her feelings on this. My parents looked at him as if he were a stranger who had just wandered in off the street. To them, this was a family matter, and he was an outsider. But he wasn't. He was my family now. This is not up for discussion, I said, my voice shaking with a fury I hadn't felt in years. She will not be there. End of story. I stood up, pushing my chair back so hard it scraped against the wood floor. Thank you for dinner. Liam stood with me, a silent, unshakable ally. We walked out of the house, leaving my parents sitting in stunned silence at the table. As the front door clicked shut behind me, I felt the cold dread of realization. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a war. The war began, as I predicted, not with a bang, but with the quiet, persistent buzz of my phone. It started the morning after the disastrous dinner. A text from my mother, I couldn't sleep all night. Your father is so disappointed. Please, Clara, just think about what you're doing to this family. I deleted it without replying. An hour later, an email from my father. Subject, your wedding. The body was longer, a carefully constructed argument appealing to logic and tradition. He wrote about forgiveness being a virtue, about the importance of a united front, about how my grandmother, were she alive, would be heartbroken. He painted a picture of Izzy as a penitent soul, lost and lonely, who had spent 5 years atoning for her youthful indiscretion. He didn't mention the part where her indiscretion ripped my life to shreds. I archived the email. Liam read it over my shoulder, his brow furrowed. Are they always this manipulative? Only when they want something, I muttered, stirring my coffee so aggressively it sloshed over the rim of the mug. They want their perfect family portrait. Me, the forgiving daughter. Izzy, the redeemed daughter. All of us smiling in pastel colors at my wedding. It's a fantasy. Well, it's your reality they have to live in, he said, taking the mug from me and wiping the counter. I'm with you, whatever you decide. If you want, I can call them and tell them to back off. No, I said, shaking my head. That would just make it worse. They'd see you as the one turning me against them. This is my fight. But the fight was exhausting. Every day brought a new assault. My mother would call and, when I didn't answer, leave long, tearful voicemails. My father sent links to articles about family reconciliation. They even enlisted my aunts and uncles, who started calling with gentle, probing questions. We hear there's some trouble about the wedding list, you know, your sister loves you so much. The constant pressure was like a low-grade fever, making me irritable and anxious. It was seeping into my happy wedding planning bubble. I'd be tasting cake samples with Liam, and a text would pop up from Mom, Isabel would have loved the lemon chiffon. I'd be trying on my wedding dress, a beautiful ivory gown that made me feel like a queen, and I'd see my reflection and imagine Izzy standing behind me as a bridesmaid, a snake in a satin dress. The guilt was a well-honed weapon my parents had been using on me for years, and despite myself, it was starting to find its mark. Was I being unreasonable? Was I the one tearing the family apart, as they claimed? The doubt was a poison, clouding my judgment. Then came the direct hit. An email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just my name, Clara. My finger hovered over the delete button, but a morbid curiosity won out. I opened it. It was from Izzy. It was a masterpiece of contrition. 3 pages long, single-spaced. She wrote about her shame, her regret. She claimed she started therapy the month after the incident, that she had worked for years to understand the self-destructive impulse that led her to betray me. She never once made an excuse. She took full blame. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Clara," she wrote. "I destroyed the most precious thing in my life, our sisterhood. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't hate myself for what I did to you, and to Mark. It was a disgusting, selfish act, and I will live with that forever. I don't want to cause you any more pain. Mom and Dad are pushing this, not me. But a tiny, selfish part of me aches to just see you on your wedding day, to see you happy, even from the very back row. I just want to see you have the happiness I robbed you of. If you say no, I will understand completely and I will tell Mom and Dad to stop. Just know that I love you, and I am so, so sorry." I read it twice. Then a third time. Tears pricked my eyes. It was everything I had wanted to hear 5 years ago. It was articulate, self-aware, and devastatingly effective. It sounded genuine. Liam found me on the sofa, staring at my laptop screen, the email glowing in the dim light of the living room. "You okay?" he asked softly. I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen. He sat beside me and read the whole thing, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Wow," he said finally. "She's good. You think it's fake?" I whispered. "I don't know," he admitted, choosing his words carefully. "It sounds like she's saying all the right things. But the timing is convenient. Your parents launch their campaign, and when that stalls, she sends in this perfectly crafted apology that makes you the bad guy if you say no." He was right. It was too perfect. The part about telling our parents to stop if I said no, it put the onus entirely on me. If I refused, I wasn't just refusing her, I was refusing this new, therapized, repentant Izzy. I would be the cold-hearted one, clinging to an old grudge. "What do I do?" I asked him, my voice small. The resolve I'd felt at my parents' dinner table was crumbling, eroded by the relentless waves of emotional blackmail. A part of me, the part that missed having a sister, wanted to believe her. "You do what feels right for you, not what they want you to feel," Liam said, wrapping an arm around me. "But maybe you need more information. This all feels like a story they're telling. I wonder what the real story is." His words sparked something in me. For 5 years, I had accepted the narrative, Izzy made a terrible mistake, and I was the victim who couldn't move on. But what if there was more to it? I had cut myself off so completely, I had no idea what Izzy's life had been like. I only had the carefully curated version my parents and now she, herself, were feeding me. A name popped into my head. Chloe. My former best friend from college, someone who was friends with both me and Izzy. We had drifted apart after the implosion, the situation too awkward to navigate. But I knew she was still vaguely in touch with people from our old circle. With a trembling hand, I picked up my phone. I wasn't going to reply to Izzy. Not yet. First, I was going to do some digging. It was time to find out what really happened after I walked out that door 5 years ago. Calling Chloe felt like dialing a number to a past life. I half expected her not to answer, but she picked up on the second ring. "Clara? Wow. It's been a while." Her voice was hesitant, laced with the awkwardness of years of silence. "Hey, Chloe." "Yeah, it has. Listen, this is going to sound completely out of the blue, but I need your help. I need to ask you about Izzy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Oh," she said finally, her tone shifting from surprise to wary. "What about her?" I gave her the short version, my wedding, my parents' insistence that Izzy be invited, and the long, apologetic email. As I spoke, I felt a familiar shame, as if I were airing my family's dirty laundry. "She wrote that she's been in therapy for years and deeply regrets it," I finished, my voice trailing off. "Does that sound right to you?" Chloe let out a short, sharp laugh, devoid of any humor. "Therapy? Clara, that's rich. Unless therapy is a new slang term for flying to Cabo with the guy whose life you just helped ruin. The blood drained from my face. What are you talking about? You really don't know? Chloe's voice softened with pity. Oh, Clara. I'm so sorry. I always thought you knew and just didn't want to talk about it. Know what? I demanded, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs. About a month after after you found them, Mark and Izzy went on a trip together. To Mexico. They posted it all over their private Instagram stories. Sunsets, cocktails, the whole 9 yards. It was disgusting. They were acting like they were on a romantic getaway, not like they'd just detonated a bomb in your life. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the phone feeling slick in my sweaty palm. A trip. A romantic trip. While I was barely able to get out of bed, crying myself to sleep every night in a new, lonely apartment, they were sipping margaritas on a beach. The image was so vile, so utterly callous, it made me physically sick. But, they broke up right after, right? I stammered, clinging to a sliver of the narrative I had been fed. They dated, Chloe said flatly. For almost 6 months after you found them out. It wasn't a one-time mistake, Clara. It was a full-blown affair that they just stopped hiding. Everyone in our old circle knew. Izzy told people that you and Mark had been having problems for ages, that you were emotionally unstable, and that she and Mark had just found comfort in each other. She painted you as the crazy ex-girlfriend. The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a calculated campaign of character assassination. She hadn't just stolen my boyfriend, she had stolen my reputation, rewriting history to make herself the protagonist in a tragic love story and me the villain. The carefully crafted email, the talk of therapy and regret, it was all a lie. A sick, manipulative performance designed to get her what she wanted, a seat at my wedding, a public symbol of my forgiveness, the final act in her play of redemption. She hadn't changed at all. She had just gotten better at lying. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered, the words raw with pain. We were scared, Chloe admitted. You cut everyone off. And Izzy, she can be very convincing. She made it seem like bringing it up would just cause you more pain. Looking back, I'm so sorry, Clara. We should have told you. We should have had your back. It's okay, I said, though it wasn't. But the anger I felt wasn't directed at Chloe. It was a pure, cold, clarifying rage, and it was all for my sister and my parents. They had conspired in this lie. My parents must have known. Their pleas for me to forgive a mistake were a cover for the ugly, protracted truth. They weren't just protecting a daughter who had erred, they were protecting a predator. A strange calm washed over me. The doubt, the guilt, the exhaustion, it all vanished, replaced by an icy resolve. The war wasn't about keeping Izzy away anymore. It was about taking back my own story. Chloe, thank you, I said, my voice now steady and clear. You have no idea how much you've just helped me. Are you okay? She asked, concern in her voice. I'm better than okay, I said, and for the first time in weeks, I meant it. I know exactly what I need to do now. I hung up the phone and walked into the living room where Liam was working. He looked up, sensing the change in my demeanor. Talk to Chloe, he asked. I nodded, my expression grim. They didn't just sleep together once. They dated for 6 months after. They went on vacation together. And she told everyone I was the unstable one. Liam's face hardened. He stood up and wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. I'm so sorry, Clara. That's monstrous. It is, I said, my voice muffled against his chest. But it's also a gift. I'm not confused anymore. I'm not guilty. I'm just angry. I pulled back to look him in the eyes. My parents just called. They said they were buying Izzy's plane ticket. They think I'm going to cave. We'll tell them no. I'll do it. It's over, he said, his protective instincts flaring. No, I said, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. It probably looked terrifying. Don't say anything. Let them buy the ticket. Let them think they've won. Liam looked at me, confused. Why? Because I'm done hiding and I'm done running, I explained, my mind racing, a plan forming out of the ashes of my anger. I'm not going to have a screaming match over the phone. I'm not going to let them ruin the weeks leading up to our wedding. They want Izzy at my wedding? Fine. Let her come. He stared at me, completely bewildered. Clara, what are you talking about? I have a choice to make, I said, feeling a surge of power I hadn't felt in my entire life. But I'm going to make it on my terms. On my day. In my dress. They want a family portrait? They're going to get one they never, ever expected. In the 2 months leading up to the wedding, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. To my parents, I was the dutiful daughter who had finally seen the light. After my call with Chloe, I waited a day and then called my mother. Mom, I began, my voice soft and slightly weary. About Izzy, you can book the ticket. The sigh of relief on the other end of the line was so profound it was almost comical. Oh, Clara. Thank you. I knew you'd do the right thing. This makes me so happy. It's all your father and I wanted, for our family to be whole again. Whole? I thought. You have no idea what's been broken. But I just said, okay, Mom. I'll see you at the wedding. The campaign of guilt ceased immediately. It was replaced by an onslaught of cheerful, wedding-focused chatter. My mother called with unsolicited advice on centerpieces. My father sent me money with a note that said, for our beautiful, big-hearted daughter. They believed they had one, that their pressure had successfully bent me to their will. They had no idea that I wasn't bent. I was forged. Liam watched me with a mixture of awe and concern. You're scarily good at this, he said one evening as I got off the phone with my mom, having just endured a 20-minute monologue about the dress Izzy was planning to wear. I learned from the best, I replied grimly, opening my laptop. Now, let's talk security. That was the other side of my preparation. While I was playing the part of the forgiving daughter, I was also meeting quietly with my wedding planner, a wonderfully efficient woman named Evelyn. I have a sensitive family situation, I explained to her in her chic downtown office. Liam sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee. There is a possibility of a guest, my sister, and my parents causing a scene. I need to know what our options are for managing that discreetly. Evelyn didn't even blink. We handle this more often than you'd think, she said, pulling out a folder. We have a preferred security team. They're excellent. They look like guests, not bouncers. We can have 2 of them positioned near the entrance. You give us the photos, you give us the signal, and they will handle the removal quietly and professionally. No one will even know it's happening. Perfect, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. That's exactly what I want. The next few weeks were a strange dichotomy. On one hand, there was the pure joy of marrying Liam. We finalized our vows, we had our tasting with the caterer, we danced in our living room to the song we'd chosen for our first dance. These moments with him were my sanctuary, a reminder of the beautiful, honest future we were building, a future free of the lies that had defined my past. On the other hand, there was the secret plan. I forwarded Evelyn the photos of my parents and Izzy. I had a final call with the head of the security detail, a calm, reassuring man named David. I walked him through the plan. They were not to intervene unless I gave a specific, clear signal. My parents, blissful in their ignorance, insisted on throwing us a small family dinner the week before the wedding. It was the first time I had seen Izzy in person in 5 years. She stood in my parents' living room, looking nervous and beautiful. She rushed to hug me. I didn't hug her back, I just stood there, rigid, until she awkwardly let go. Clara, she said, her eyes welling up with practiced tears. Thank you. This means the world to me. You're welcome, I said, my voice neutral. Throughout the dinner, she played the part of the redeemed sister perfectly. She asked Liam questions about his work, She complimented my ring. She reminisced about a happy childhood memory, a family trip to a lake, as if there wasn't a gaping, 5-year chasm of betrayal between us. My parents watched, beaming. This was their fantasy made real. I watched her, not with pain, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a specimen. I saw the subtle glances she shot our parents for approval. I saw the flicker of triumph in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. The woman Chloe described was right here, hiding in plain sight. She wasn't sorry. She was proud. She had gotten away with it. On the drive home, Liam reached over and took my hand. That was one of the most tense meals of my life. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said, and it was true. Seeing her, seeing the whole performance, had only solidified my resolve. All I felt was pity. That her life is so empty she has to lie her way into someone else's. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. But it wasn't from anxiety. It was anticipation. I stood in front of the mirror in our hotel suite, looking at my wedding dress hanging on the door. It was a symbol of my new life, of my love for Liam, of my future. For a moment, a wave of sadness washed over me. Sadness for the family I should have had. Sadness that my wedding day had to be tainted by this elaborate, painful maneuver. But then I thought about walking down that aisle to Liam. I thought about building our own family, one based on trust and honesty. And I knew this was a necessary step. It wasn't just about punishing Izzy or my parents. It was about protecting that future. It was about drawing a line in the sand so deep that no one could ever cross it again. I was not the victim anymore. I was not the crazy ex-girlfriend or the cold-hearted daughter. Tomorrow, I would be a bride. And I would be the one who decided who got to witness it. The wedding day dawned bright and impossibly beautiful. The venue was a historic estate with sprawling gardens, and as I got ready with my bridesmaids, a small, loyal group that included a tearfully apologetic Chloe, I felt a profound sense of calm. The storm was coming, but I was the one who had seeded the clouds. Liam and I had our first look in a secluded rose garden. The moment I saw him, handsome and steady in his tailored suit, any lingering sorrow vanished. He took my hands in his. "Ready for this?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "More than ready," I said, squeezing his hands. "This is the last piece of baggage I'm checking before we take off." He smiled, kissed me, and for a few perfect moments, it was just the two of us, on the brink of our forever. I had arranged for a small, private room near the main entrance for my final confrontation. My security detail, David and another man, were dressed impeccably and mingling near the guest book table, indistinguishable from my other guests. My planner, Evelyn, gave me a subtle nod as my parents' car pulled up the long, gravel driveway. "They're here," she murmured. My heart began to beat a little faster. This was it. I took a deep breath, smoothed down the front of my ivory gown, and walked to the designated room. Liam was right behind me, his hand a warm, steady presence on my lower back. The doors opened, and my parents walked in, beaming. And between them, looking radiant in a rose-gold dress, was Izzy. They saw me and their smiles widened, assuming I had arranged a special, pre-ceremony family moment. "Clara, you look breathtaking," my mother gushed, moving forward to hug me. I held up a hand, stopping her. "Don't. Please, just listen." The smiles on their faces faltered, replaced by confusion. "I'm glad you're all here," I began, my voice clear and strong, echoing slightly in the quiet room. "Because there are some things that need to be said before any of us go a step further today." I looked directly at Izzy. "I received your email. The one about your therapy and your profound regret. It was very well written. But you and I both know it was a lie." Izzy's face paled. "Clara, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Cabo, Izzy," I said, letting the name drop into the silence. "I'm talking about the 6-month relationship you had with Mark after you destroyed my life. I'm talking about the story you told everyone, that I was unstable and you were just finding comfort. Your mistake wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a deliberate, malicious campaign to take everything from me. And you were never, ever sorry. You were just sorry you got caught. Izzy stared at me, speechless, her mask of contrition shattering. My mother gasped. Clara! This is your wedding day. Why are you bringing up these horrible, ancient things? Because you brought them here, I said, turning my gaze to my parents. You too. You spent months telling me to forgive her, to put it in the past, to be the bigger person. Did you know she dated him? Did you know she told everyone I was crazy? Their silence was the only answer I needed. Of course, they knew. You didn't want forgiveness, I continued, my voice shaking with the force of my conviction. You wanted compliance. You wanted me to help you maintain the fiction of our perfect family, a family that protects predators instead of victims. You wanted me to stand at the altar and pretend that the person who showed me the deepest betrayal of my life deserved to be there. Tears were streaming down my mother's face. My father looked furious. This is an ambush. You are ruining your own wedding. No, I said firmly, taking a step closer to Liam. I am saving it. I am saving myself. And that's where my unexpected choice comes in. I looked at all three of them, the architects of my deepest pain. My choice isn't just about Izzy. It's about you, I said to my parents. Today, you have to make a choice. Isabel is not welcome at this wedding. She will not witness my vows or celebrate my marriage. David and his associate will escort her out now. On cue, the two security men stepped forward politely. Izzy let out a sob. And you too, I said to my parents, my voice softening slightly. You can choose to stay. You can walk into that ceremony, watch your daughter get married, and begin a new, honest relationship with me, one where my boundaries are respected. Or, you can choose her. You can leave with the daughter you've consistently chosen to protect over me. But if you walk out that door with her, you need to understand that you are not just leaving a wedding. You are leaving my life. The choice is yours. A stunned, horrified silence filled the room. This was not the outcome they had ever imagined. They thought the options were Izzy attending or not attending. They never dreamed the choice would be about them. My father's face was purple with rage. How dare you? After everything we've done for you, you give us an ultimatum? You gave me an ultimatum first, I countered calmly. You told me to accept her or I would be tearing the family apart. I'm just showing you what that really looks like. My mother looked from me to Izzy, her expression torn and agonized. Izzy was crying hysterically now, a pathetic, desperate sound. Mommy, Daddy, don't let her do this, she wailed. That was the moment. The final choice. My mother's gaze softened on Izzy. She walked over and wrapped an arm around her, glaring at me with eyes full of accusation. My father followed, putting a protective hand on Izzy's shoulder. They had made their choice. A sharp, clean pain lanced through me, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of liberation. I had my answer. Okay, I whispered. I nodded to David. He stepped forward. Sir, ma'am, if you'll come with me. My father shot me one last look of pure venom. You will regret this, Clara. And then they were gone. The three of them, walking out of my wedding, out of my life. The door clicked shut, plunging the room into silence. I stood there for a long moment, then let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 5 years. Liam wrapped his arms around me. I'm so proud of you, he whispered into my hair. I looked up at him, and a real, genuine smile spread across my face. Tears welled in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Of freedom. My family just left, I said, my voice thick with emotion. No, he said, kissing my forehead. Your family is waiting for you at the end of that aisle. He took my hand, and we walked out of the room, leaving the ghosts of the past behind. My wedding was smaller than planned. The parents of the bride chairs were empty. But as I walked down the aisle toward the man I loved, I felt lighter than I had in my entire adult life. I had been given a choice between a toxic, fabricated family and a future of my own making. And I had chosen myself.